Hi, I'm Hearn, and in this podcast today, I'm going to be looking at data compatibility in market research and briefly how that's reflected in our QPSMR software and indeed our other software. So join me for this podcast today about data compatibility. Hi, and welcome to this podcast about data compatibility in market research. I'm going to start perhaps by thinking perhaps of something outside of market research. Let's just imagine, for example, that you've bought a car, but having bought that car, it's the only mode of transport that you can use for anything that you do. Now, I live in the UK where I sometimes have to go into the big city of London, and for me to get there, the most convenient way is to drive my car to the station and then take a train to London because the traffic in London is so bad. But imagine I can't do that. It would be inconvenient if I had to drive into London. And think about my holiday perhaps where I want to take a flight to somewhere else. If I had to take a car all the way to where I went, rather than perhaps a 2-hour flight, that would be pretty inconvenient. And if it was a 12-hour flight, well, it would be impossible. So why am I saying all this? Well, in some ways, software is the same, and software in market research is just the same as other software in other businesses. You might have one product that's your main mode of travel or main mode of data processing in market research, but you need to take other modes or use other bits of software to achieve what you want. I've noticed there's a sort of general move in software in market research to cover more things. So platforms that perhaps started as data collection platforms now do tables, dashboards, but sometimes I question at what depth do they do that. They might perhaps be the best product or a good product for data collection, but then they've not really got the depth for doing tables and dashboards. Now that might be fine if all you're doing is perhaps one type of work, or you're just perhaps doing simple surveys all the time, but that for most research agencies is not the norm. And indeed, most products have a core strength. One of the parts of their software is the reason that you bought it. And what I'm going to talk about in this podcast today is in practice to perhaps try and raise some awareness about the need for what I'm going to call data maneuverability. That's the ability to move your data from your surveys wherever you want it, or perhaps more importantly, wherever your clients want it. Now, we're going to look at what can make that difficult, and briefly at the end, I'm going to just talk about QPSMR and how data maneuverability fits in with QPSMR. Now, some of the reasons for wanting to have this data maneuverability is that clients are increasingly wanting to get their hands on their data. So they may have some internal systems where they want to plug in the data you collected in a survey so that it goes into some CRM system, some data management system, whatever it might be, some feedback system perhaps, that they want to use the data that you've collected to use with other business data that they have. They may be using a preferred software product, so they may use a software product for market research, but it might not be the one that you've used, and so it's important that you can transfer the data from your software into whatever it is they're using. They may want to see survey data alongside other business data. So not only do they want to see the results of the survey, they perhaps want to see that alongside sales, other performance indicators, and so on. So that's something that's increasing in importance, I think, both for research agencies when they're presenting research data and for clients who want to use their data. And there's a general move towards dashboards and data visualization. And I think although that's in its infancy, I think that's something that's going to really take off and grow in the coming years. So data maneuverability, in my opinion, is easily underrated. I think it's one of those things that you need to make sure that you can use the best tools for a particular purpose so that you can deliver clients exactly what they want. And more importantly, easily, because it's okay to say, well, yes, we can get this data from A to B, but if that's a complex procedure, that's not good. It's the same as taking my car on a holiday and driving for 23 hours to get to a destination when I can drive to the airport and take a flight. So it's important not to get trapped. And one of the things I don't like about some software packages is that they might be sometimes quite good at getting data in, but not very good at getting data out. And I really think that is something that's absolutely crucial in this day and age, where you really need to make sure that the software that you're using allows you not only to get data in, but to get data out. And when I was reviewing software packages recently, I found one product that I think had 10 or so different imports it had into the software, no mention of ever getting the data back out again. Now, to me, that's not good enough. And you need to be able to serve your customers as they need, so that you can provide that data in the form that they require, and not have to tell your customers they can only use their car. So software can be good and bad as well. I think this is something that's very, very heavily underrated. Software can be good at one thing, but not so good at another. I've seen people in data processing departments perhaps spend 5 hours or more importing some data, managing to massage the data so they can get it into a product and do whatever they've got to do with it, whether that be analysis, perhaps doing some PowerPoint charts, perhaps doing some reports, perhaps making a dashboard, perhaps producing tables, whatever it might be. You don't want these processes to be difficult, and it's not unusual in some products now where something that might take 5-10 minutes might take several hours in another product. So it's something that you really need to keep abreast of and consider, are you using the right tool for that particular task? Now, when it comes to importing and exporting data, I think it's really important that you can import SSS, SPSS data, Excel data. All these are common forms of moving them. My preferred one is SSS because it's focused on market research, if you like. It's not a proprietary like format like SPSS. And Excel data, of course, just gives you the data without too much annotation of what the data in that spreadsheet means. So there's normally some more work having read in Excel data. So SSS is my preferred method. And when it comes to exporting, yes, I like all those three things to be available, but it's important to be adaptable and flexible, because clients might want data in different forms so that it goes into their database. So they might want it comma separated. They may want something that's slightly different from that, laid out in some other particular way. I'm also going to quickly mention SAPI here, TSAPI, which is something new that's coming up in market research. It certainly had the prototype looked at. Again, it's a follow-on, if you like, from SSS, and that's an API that hopefully can make market research data more accessible to other business data. But as I say, that's in its infancy at the moment, and I hope it grows and matures to be a viable form for moving data about. So let's look at QPS. As I said, I've mentioned that briefly. Now, a lot of customers like using QPS. It's one of those products that people find easy to use and very convenient to do their surveys, for paper surveys, CAPI, CATI, and so on. It does tables, but I think perhaps as important as all those things that it does very well and is easy to use, it connects wherever you want it with great ease. So it's easy to get data in from other systems. You've got good control when you export it to other systems. So by good control, I mean you can select the variables you want, you can have derived variables, you can order the variables how you want to, you can hide variables that you don't think are relevant to pass on to some other system. And also something, again, that's often underrated, it has good tools in it for tracking studies as well, and something, again, that a lot of products don't handle particularly well, because we all know what happens with tracking studies. They're supposed to be the same every month or every period, and they get changed regularly with questions added, questions deleted, codes added, codes removed, and so on. So you really need a tool that can handle tracking studies well if you're going to process any tracking studies as a company. And that's true of all of our products, NRDCL, our scripted tabulation software, and Snap for online surveys, all have this data compatibility and put a real emphasis on data maneuverability so that you can use the data wherever you need to and wherever your client needs to. And I'm going to finish by saying that I think data maneuverability is something that's going to increase in importance as time goes on. It's already quite important, but it will grow in importance. Businesses around the world now expect data at their fingertips, but they expect it quickly, easily, and perhaps importantly, without error. So data maneuverability is easily underrated. Make sure you use the best tools for a particular purpose so that you can deliver clients just what they want and easily. I won't be using my car as the only means of my travel, and I don't think you should. Thank you for joining me today. If you've got any questions, feel free to email me. I'll be pleased to answer any questions you've got. Thank you.